Hello again and welcome back to the quiet side of history. The stories here don't move quickly, and they don't always make sense, at least not by modern standards. But once, long ago, what now seems strange was simply tradition. Tonight we travel far back in time, to a city older than Rome, older than Greece, older than the pyramids. A place where kings ruled like gods and death was never faced alone. You're about to hear the story of a king whose servants followed him into the grave. Not because they had to, but because they were expected to, and they did it willingly, or so the records say. Now, let's begin. Long ago, before empires, before coins, before laws carved in stone, there was a city in the land of Sumer in what is now southern Iraq. It was warm, dry, and ruled by order. Every home was made from mud brick, shaped by hand sun, baked and sturdy. The air smelled of dust, barley, and cooking fires. The people worshipped many gods, each with their own temple, their own priests, their own rituals. But no figure stood higher than the king. He was not just a man, but something more. A bridge between the heavens and the earth. And when that king died, it was not a solitary ending. It was the start of something greater. A funeral was held, not just for one body, but for dozens. They were buried together in chambers carved deep into the earth, lying still side by side in perfect silence. In the 1920s, archaeologists uncovered a cemetery near the ruins of Ur. It stretched across the sand like a forgotten city, 2,000 graves, most simple, but 16 of them different, larger, deeper, lined with brick, and filled not with one body but many. These became known as the royal tombs of Ur. Inside, they found gold lapis lazuli, bronze spears, combs, carved from ivory lyres with silver strings. They found women dressed in fine headdresses, their skulls still adorned with jewels. They were not thrown in. They were laid out with care, arm to arm, head to head, silent attendants in perfect rows. Some held musical instruments, others cups. Some rested beside chariots, all of them motionless as if simply sleeping. They hadn't been killed by force. There were no wounds, just stillness. The kind that feels chosen, or practiced, or perhaps accepted. One tomb, deeper than the rest, belonged to a man named King Mescalamdug. His name was inscribed in delicate script on a golden helmet found beside him. He ruled more than 4,000 years ago, and yet we still feel his shadow. His body was buried at the center of the chamber, wrapped in cloth and surrounded by offerings, and around him his court. Men with spears, women with harps, even oxen, yoked to wooden carts, as if ready to ride with him into the afterlife. No one knows exactly how the burial took place, but it seems the servants walked in alive. They drank something, perhaps wine, perhaps laced with a poison or a sleeping agent. Then they lay down beside their king, on soft mats, and did not rise. There was no sign of struggle, no broken bones, just calm, arranged death, a ritual of quiet loyalty. Among the bodies was one that stood out, a woman. Her head rested gently on the ground, her hands frozen over the frame of a lyre. The instrument still sat beside her, its wood dried and splintered, but its frame intact. The head of a bull made of gold stared out from it, lapis lazuli eyes, a beard of silver curls. She became known as the lyre player of Ur. Her music, if she ever played it, is long gone, but the pose suggests something ceremonial. She lay there with others, musicians perhaps lined up in a quiet choir of the dead. It is said they went down together. One final performance, one final procession, then sleep, deep and permanent. They were buried with wine jugs, beads, cosmetics, and comms, not as prisoners, not as sacrifices, but as part of the king's final stage, a death arranged like a performance. These burials were not done in secret. They were public, ceremonial, part of how kings proved their power even in death. These were called death pits, deep open chambers carved into the earth, often with ramps leading down, so the living could walk in. The king or queen was already buried below, in a hidden chamber, and the rest walked into the pit above. Servants, soldiers, musicians, companions. Some may have volunteered, others may have simply understood that this was their duty. In the world of Ur, the afterlife mirrored life. The king would need attendance, food, music, honor, so those things were sent with him, whole and human. The people lay down in rows, took their drinks and closed their eyes. Then the pit was filled in, sealed with earth and silence. For thousands of years they remained beneath the sand, a palace made of stillness. One of the most elaborate tombs belonged not to a king, but a queen. Her name was Pwabi, and her resting place was untouched for over 4,000 years. Her body was found beneath layers of treasure, headdresses of gold, necklaces of agate, rings on every finger. her skull still wearing its crown. In the chamber above her, archaeologists found 52 bodies, all arranged in careful rows. Women wore jewelry, men carried weapons. Musicians were still seated beside their instruments. The Queen's attendants had gone down with her in perfect order. There were no signs of panic, no bones out of place. They had simply lain down. Perhaps they believed they were going to join her in the next world. Perhaps they had no choice. Either way, when the pit was sealed, a ruler passed into eternity with her court at her side. Not one voice, but many, silenced all at once. What happened in those final moments remains unknown, but clues have emerged. Near many of the bodies, small cups were found. In some, traces of residue. A chemical analysis suggested mercury and alkaloids, compounds that could sedate or kill. It's possible the servants were given a potion, something to numb their thoughts, to quiet the fear. Perhaps they drank it as part of a ritual, with music playing, incense burning, and priests reciting prayers. They may have believed, truly believed, they were not dying, only crossing over into another palace, another kingdom, a world where the king would rule again, and they would serve him once more, in peace. If there was pain, it didn't show in the bones. If there was resistance, it wasn't recorded. Only stillness, order, and sleep, a silence so complete it held for 40 centuries. Until the sand gave way. Centuries passed. The city of Ur fell first to drought, then to invasion. Its walls crumbled, its streets filled with dust. The people scattered, and the memory of their kings faded. Over time, the world forgot the ones buried below. The tombs were sealed, the rituals ended, and no one walked willingly into death pits again. For thousands of years, the royal graves of Ur lay untouched beneath the desert, a forgotten tradition frozen beneath clay and time. Then, in the 20th century, they were opened, not by priests but by archaeologists. Brushes instead of blades, questions instead of prayers, and when the tombs were cleared, the world above was stunned. A queen, a king, dozens of loyal servants, all still in place, all perfectly still. It was not a mass grave, it was a statement, a ritual of loyalty preserved longer than memory. Today, the idea of burying the living with the dead feels cruel, unthinkable, but in Sumer it was something else. Loyalty was not about freedom, it was about order, and when the ruler died, so did the world around him. The servants who followed were not seen as victims. They were seen as extensions of his power, continuing his rule on the other side. Their death was not a loss, but a gift, something sacred, something necessary. In this view, the individual didn't matter, only the ritual did. The chamber had to be full, the court complete, and so they drank, lay down, and vanished. Whether by faith or by force, they stepped into silence. Their names are gone, their voices lost, but their stillness remains, not in fear but in function. They did not die for themselves, they died for a king. And now, as your breath softens, and your eyes begin to close, think of the quiet tombs beneath ancient Ur. Deep beneath the ground, beneath centuries of sand and sleep, a king rests surrounded by those who chose to follow, or were told to, their arms folded, their jewels still in place, their lyres silent, and for a moment the noise of the world fades. History grows quiet again. Not every question has an answer. Not every ritual needs to make sense. Sometimes the past simply was, and we are only visitors. Tonight, let the noise go. Let the dust settle. Let the story end in stillness. The tomb is closed. The torches are out, and the servants have gone wherever kings go when the last crown falls. Sleep well, and good night.